Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you with Red 10 People Development. Well, Merry Christmas. Another draw is over. Wrexham all square. Are they going around in circles? Who knows? We'll talk about the Preston match on today's podcast, look ahead to the Hull City game and argue, do Wrexham have the best goalkeeper in the Championship? All that and more to come on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Well, Nath, Preston again, another draw again. How are you doing? How's your weekend been? We've got Hull City on the horizon. Are you feeling excited for that one?
Yeah, I'm feeling very excited. Reliably informed by my good friend Kathryn, who you'll hear from later in the show, that they have won awards for their away day hospitality. I do hope that extends beyond the concourse and onto the pitch as well, although I'm slightly nervous that given Middlesbrough absolutely battered them on their own patch, usually that brings about a response with back-to-back home games. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I was disappointed I didn't get to go back to, what is the name of the pub that you absolutely adore in Preston more than any pub in the world?
The Black Horse, which I think might be the best pub in the world, potentially.
It's the best pub you've ever been to, I think. I think we can say that.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Got proper old school tiles everywhere. Real good selection of local ales and beers on tap, and then some really nice continental ones as well. And I had one of those away day moments which you can't really plan. You can't plan at all. So I got to Preston. I thought I'll just go to the Black Horse, my favourite pub. I knew a few of the Manchester Reds were there. I'll go there, meet up with them pre-match. And I went to the pub and I knew which door I was aiming for, but I opened the wrong door, taboo, in front of the bar. And I bashed this door open. I don't think it was meant to open, but I bashed it open and it hit someone in the back. And that person turned around and I went to high school with them. I've not seen them in 8 years. And they were in the Preston home end for the game. So the amount of coincidences that came together right there and then, and I had like this spontaneous 2-hour drinking fest before Preston away. And again, we talk about it all the time. The away day experience is not about the football whatsoever. So when I talk about Preston being one of my favourite away days I've had in recent years, it really was. I absolutely loved it. And then the football happened, which was also all right. It was okay. But for me, the day will always be remembered that I bumped in to the only North Walian Preston fan you will probably ever meet. I used to go to high school with them, hadn't seen them for 8 years, and it just so happened to be them that I bashed the door with, because if it hadn't have been them, I might have got my head kicked in. But thankfully, they turned around and recognised me, and then they bought me a pint. So all was well. And yeah, Preston, I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I like the idea of you turning into sort of the Incredible Hulk to just batter down the door of the Black Horse. But glad you had a good time. Like I say, for the football, I guess we didn't learn a lot of new things. I think it was what we've said it was for a while. Although someone did get very mad in the YouTube comments that we are the worst people to summarise Wrexham. We are the biggest nitpickers in the world. So not only are we picking out Preston for the best pub in the world, apparently we are the absolute worst. And a few people had our back. So thank you if you're one of those people. I think on the pitch, it was what we've said it was. What did we say in the last episode, Rich? It's Wrexham are hard to break down. You will stay in the game. You will not be down by more than a goal. We get the early goal from Kiefer. Brilliant ball in by McLean. And Kiefer is Johnny on the spot of the back post. That's why when players are younger, coaches always say, get to the back post, because there's always opportunities like that one. Kiefer's up to 8 in the league now. League top goal scorer, the Golden Boot, currently is going to a player with 10 goals. Kiefer's on 8. So, and also, quickly want to say, it wasn't your hot take in our kind of Wrexham amnesty that no player would get 10 goals for Wrexham this season?
I think that's out of the window.
No, well, thankfully, that's Kiefer's on a good track. But Preston respond, and in the end, I think they were probably worthy of it. By the look, obviously, I was working. You were there. It seemed fair, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the Preston fans will watch it back and they'll say they battered us, but it was possession for the sake of having the ball at times, and they had lots of shots, but they didn't really have chances. Arthur made some really good saves, but even then, there was maybe one or two that were really good saves, but a few of them were just, if he would have let them in, you might have actually questioned him. They're decent stops. So I wouldn't say necessarily that Preston deserved to win. I do think the point was fair. Yes, we didn't create much, but that is just our game plan. We are very binary. Our score lines are zeros and ones. We either score one or score zero. That is basically all that happens, and we don't lose many. And for me, the positive sign that came out of Preston was I was actually more convinced than ever that Parky might be the guy to eventually get us out of the Championship. Because we speculated it early in the season. We've been called out for people saying, will you discuss the manager's position? We did. I feel like that was the mood at the time. You've got to ask those questions. What I would say now, though, is we know for a fact that we've got these foundations, because it's a 2-3 year project to get out of the Championship to the Premier League. The club internally would love it to be 2 years. That is the absolute utmost ambition. I don't think 3 years is that bad. 4 or 5 years is fine as well from my personal perspective. I'm in the Championship, having the time of my life. I'm enjoying it. Let's sit back and relax, enjoy our surroundings. But what it taught me, and what I've sort of learned over the last few weeks, is although I'm a bit disappointed with the lack of firepower we have, and I still think the team needs to evolve a little bit to actually get promotion eventually, what it does say to us, if Parky's in charge next season, which we all expect he will be, you've already got the foundations there of a team that won't lose many matches and won't concede many goals. So if you put a fully fit Kabore in there, a fully fit Kakache, or replacements for them even that are even better and available, obviously Kabore's only on loan anyway, so you would either have to get him back or get another winger. And then you added another striker, another goal scorer, maybe you add another midfielder who can get goals as well. If you just add goals to this team, that is the foundations and the mix for promotion, because we've already established right now, we've had our teething issues, but we don't concede many goals. And looking at next season, yes, things can change, but if Parky's in charge next season, Wrexham are playing 5 at the back. The back 3 will be Doyle, Hyam and Max probably, and Arthur in goal. So you've already got the foundations there for your promotion winning side probably. You just need to add the goals to it. So as kind of disappointed I was, I do think there comes a time where you can't just be happy to go away and draw all the time. I think Preston away is a very good point. I'm not saying that I'm disappointed we didn't beat Preston. But when you look at, the fact we drew at Ipswich, drew at Pompey as well, you'd like to have thought we would have won one of them. I do just think that right now, add a few more goals to this team and you can break away from the pack. I still don't see it happening this season quite yet, but I'm more confident than ever, I think, that actually Parky could be the guy to get us promoted, because I actually didn't see that at the start of the season. I couldn't envisage ever having success with Parky in the Championship as in promotion. But I think right now I kind of do see it.
Yeah, look, defensively, very, very solid. Like you said, we've banged the drum for a while. You all know now our thoughts on January, whether we should go for it. Read that email from Ned about the opposite of that. Why you wouldn't go for it this summer and keep your powder dry. So we don't need to go over all that. That's in pretty much any other episode that we've done to this point. I guess one of the most surprising things to me that I was going to pick your brain on, Rich, is Kabore gets injured. Panic stations. Kakache has had flashes, but he's rarely been available. All season long, he's been in and out of the team, constant little issues and knocks. When we were without both of those, I think the situation or the feeling was we are going to really struggle now because our wing-back depth is not there. Barney has been largely in the cold. Longman has played on the left and the right and is okay. Has had some good games, but he's also struggled in some others. McLean looked like he was, very well. Not looked like he basically admitted himself he wasn't enjoying it as he has previously because he wasn't involved, wasn't playing. He's come back in and been great. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but was your man of the match on Preston, one of the man of the match on Saturday. Have you been surprised, or did you think that you always knew that we had those players in reserve? Because I don't want to rewrite the script. I've been very surprised by what we've been able to extract out of the wing backs.
Absolutely. And again, to quote ourselves, we always say how important the wing backs are. And that, again, even then in that analysis, I basically said our wing backs aren't good enough for us to get promoted. But James McLean, oddly, seems to be getting better at the level. I think McLean's worst season was probably the League Two season in terms of what he actually delivered. League One, he surprised me with how good he was. And right now, honestly, his last sort of 4 or 5 games in the Wrexham team has been probably his best ever run in a Wrexham shirt, because he almost scored a goal at Preston. That was clear off the line. But defensively, he was really disciplined. He gets the assist just about for the goal as well for Kiefer. He's really, really blown me away, James McLean, because I just presume January he goes. He's only around because he's the captain. Basically being replaced by Dom Hyam as the actual captain. But now he's back in the team and he deserves to be. And yeah, I'm blown away by that. And again, it's sort of that professionalism, that drive, that determination of McLean. And look, he wasn't happy at the start of the season. He said it on other podcasts that he was unhappy with his lack of playing time, and he felt that at this stage of his career, he has to be playing every single week because that is what he puts all this dedication in for. And it's been one of those sliding doors moments, because the plan is for Kakache to be playing every single week. But right now, if Kakache is fully fit, he shouldn't be starting for Wrexham, which sounds obscene, but you can't drop McLean because he's not done anything wrong for about a month in a Wrexham shirt. So, unless you read Nathan Salt's stories. And then if you look on the other side as well, we've been making the case for Barney, haven't we? And saying, oh, it'd be good to see him. But we're kind of making that in jest, because we both believe Barney's got something more to offer, and his delivery into the box is probably the best of any Wrexham player. But we didn't kind of believe he'd ever get that chance. And again, at Preston, he starts instead of Longman. He plays well. Okay, it's not a standout performance necessarily, but he didn't look below the standard required at championship level either. And I think that is what's so good about this Wrexham team, is because, the demands have to be so high. The players, there is no room for error or complacency when they get that chance to the first team. So a very long answer, but yeah, I've been surprised.
Well, there's an interesting question. I can't remember the journalist who put it to Parky recently, but it was about how do you actually keep everyone engaged? Because I know from previous squads that has been one of the murmurs that, certain people can feel very isolated if you're not with the main group. And then obviously, you need them then. A couple of injuries, you need those players. Remember, not saying particularly this player was isolated, but remember, was it Ben Tozer was sat in the stands at Notts County, wasn't even going to be in the squad. I think Tunnicliffe goes down in the warm-up. Suddenly Ben Tozer's in the starting 11, and played really well that day. That was one of the great sort of lower league away days, Notts County that day. And so I look at someone like Ryan Barnett, who has been a key figure, scored the goal on the day we got promoted, that Forest Green volley, an iconic goal, really. When the history of Wrexham's rise up the leagues is charted, that will be part of the montage. And was massive ever since he arrived from Solihull Moors, has delivered so much. I think some of the criticism of Barney has been that there's a predictability that works in lower leagues, but maybe you can't just do the same step of a routine and sort of dance on a postage stamp in the Championship. People are too clever and too wise for that. So, it kind of gets cut adrift a bit. Barney falls on the order, and Longman comes in and Kabore comes in, and they've both got higher level experience. But then to go into a game like Preston, good team, Rich. I know they've got their strange sort of halftime sort of supporter antics with the Spud Bros and whatnot, but they're a very good team. They're well organised. They're missing players as well. Devine, Dobbin, Armstrong, good players at the level. And the fact that you and others came away and didn't tell me that Barney stood out like a sore thumb, told me that he's been able to keep in touch, been able to stay disciplined and feel part of it, so that when he does come back in, well, there you go, fruits of his labour.
What I was going to say to you there as well, I'm just going to get the squad up from Saturday, basically, because I know it's a squad game, and I know it's a trope that we fall into, talk about your strongest 11, etc. But when Wrexham were building their squad in the summer, the plan wouldn't have been in December for McLean to be starting matches, for Dobson to be starting matches, for Barney to be starting matches, for Dan Scarr to be starting matches, and maybe even for Arthur to be starting matches. It was meant to be Danny Ward. So you can say, basically half of your lineup at Preston weren't actually in that vision of who you think the team was meant to be at this stage of the season. So that shows it, and that's what we've got. And again, that's what the beauty of Saturday was for me. We didn't learn anything, and again, that proves to you that it is kind of a working winning formula at the moment. We can go to any ground and you just think, we're going to be in this game. It might not be pretty, but we know how to get these results, and every single player does that. And right now, there isn't really anyone who gives you a massive drop off when they go into the squad. I still think that, look, you take Hyam out, that defence probably not doesn't fall apart, but gets considerably weaker. And again, what we learnt was Arthur Okonkwo is a very good goalkeeper. Dom Hyam is an excellent centre back, and Kiefer Moore is the only person who can seem to score a goal for Wrexham. We knew that already. So, the foundations are there. So you can either look at that as a positive or a negative, depending on your mindset, really, because there's just not going to be many goals in Wrexham games this season. And that is both a huge compliment to our defence and maybe a slight criticism of what we create. But once again, you only need a goal to win a game, potentially. So maybe that's what we need to worry about. And what I was looking for, Nath, earlier, when I was so rudely sort of looking away from the camera when you were speaking, we had a comment on YouTube last week from a user called Freddy9204. And he said, or they said, actually, I'm not sure I'm assuming Fred was a boy, but it might not be. They said, I hate to rain on the playoff parade, but the situation right now is actually quite precarious. Wrexham have the tightest defence over the past 5, 6 and 10 matches, which is amazing considering early season. But it is concerning how much of it is just Arthur Okonkwo. On expected goals against, this was before Preston, we are third from bottom on expected goal difference. Oh, and on expected goal difference, we're fourth from bottom. So basically, Wrexham should have conceded the third highest number of goals this season. Our goal difference should be the fourth worst in the Championship. So Arthur Okonkwo becoming average or an injury to Moore would be dire. If both, it would be disastrous. Wrexham do not create enough scoring opportunities. Fans like to speculate on missed big chances, but forget 25% of penalties are actually missed. XGs obviously don't tell the whole story, but they do balance out in the long term, and they suggest Wrexham are probably overperforming at the moment. And again, I suppose, while we look at some of these results with rose-tinted glasses, you can see why the Preston fans might feel aggrieved they didn't get the win, and maybe Ipswich fans will feel the same. We felt they were really resolute, excellent defensive performances that got points, and I would point to our last sort of 3 years to say, well, we do this all the time, so there's a reason why we keep doing it. It isn't just a quirk. But, if we'd lost at Ipswich and we'd lost against Preston, we probably couldn't complain about those individual results, and we would be much lower down the table.
Yes, but a lot of that is ifs, buts, couldas, wouldas, and shouldas, So I totally get it. You are going to look at the exact same game totally differently based on who your allegiance is to. So a friend of mine in the home end felt that, and we're going to get onto him very shortly in the next segment, Arthur Okonkwo, and said he turned into prime Yashin, which is like the best goalkeeper in the world gets the Yashin trophy, named after, I don't know what his first name is, Yashin. Yes. Oh, Lev Yashin. There you go. Should know that. It's a good general knowledge question. Lev Yashin. So my friend in the home end said, yeah, Okonkwo is just a regeneration of Yashin. And outside of him, you didn't do a lot. Fine. The Stoke game, I know we've said that could have gone either way. There are Stoke fans that said, well, Wrexham never came out to play. A lot of the criticism usually is Wrexham are the worst team we've ever seen. They don't come out to play. They show no ambition, yada, yada, yada. And we look at it like we've restricted them to very, very little. We've nullified your threat. At the end of the day, it's about getting results. This is how we get results. The ends justify the means sort of thing. So, yeah, a lot of people on both sides won't put much kind of focus on, if another podcast listens to us and they won't really believe what we say and we might not really buy into what they say. It's all about your allegiance, and that is sport at the end of the day, right? So, I'm not going to lose too much sleep if Preston fans think we've sort of robbed a point.
Well, Nath, we teased at the start of the podcast, do Wrexham have the best goalkeeper in the Championship? I mean, at the start of the season, Okonkwo wasn't even the best goalkeeper at Wrexham. I think he's proven that over the last few weeks. He's really taken his opportunity. Seems to be getting better and better every single week, growing with confidence. Like we know, he's part of the project. We know he's not the finished article right now, but he's someone who you wouldn't be surprised if Premier League teams were looking at Arthur Okonkwo, the potential that he's got. We spoke that he's not off to AFCON. That's a huge boost for Wrexham over the festive period. What we pose today, though, Nath, and it might not matter to our fans really because he's ours, but do we have the best goalkeeper in the Championship?
I actually genuinely believe this is debatable. I'm eventually going to come down on the side that no, not quite. I think a top 3 goalkeeper in the division, personally, just on talent, potential, current execution. But I do just think there are goalkeepers that I just think offer you a touch more reliability. But you'd have to say right now, I mean, he's nominated. I think you shared a tweet that he's nominated for PFA Player of the Month. In the Championship, he's had a phenomenal month. I really hope he wins that award for November. But you'd have to say when you're looking at a performance like Preston, what did Arthur do wrong? He pulled off a double save that was one of the best double saves of anybody in any league this season. You'd have to say, people will say that's hyperbole, rival fans, but I mean, it was as good as you're going to get, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. He just is such a good shot stopper, and I still feel that sometimes he's not as commanding from crosses as you want him to be. There's also at home games, I think he gets some stick because he's not vocal. That's just not his style. He's a laid-back guy. He leads through playing, not from shouting. And being the loudest player doesn't mean you're a leader. You could just be spouting nonsense, and defenders don't always want to hear their goalkeeper yapping and shouting for no reason.
I always remember Joe Hart in the tunnel at the World Cup when he would be like, pounding his chest and saying so much. He just overdid it, and you could just see the other defenders had just completely tuned it out. So
yeah, you can't,
be authentic, right? He's clearly a fairly quiet guy. It's not a bad thing.
Very much like us on this podcast. If you talk too much, people stop listening, don't they? After a while, so that's part of it. But I think for Arthur, just in pure shot stopping terms, he really is right up there. And I guess the quirk for analysing that is I don't watch every other Championship team every single week, so I can't give you detailed match by match analysis of what others are doing. But Arthur, you look at and again, the other difficulty with analysing a goalkeeper is what team are they in. Because a goalkeeper who plays for the best team in the division has less to do. Okay, sometimes they have to make 1 or 2 saves a game, but if they're on it, they're on it. Fair play. Goalkeepers near the bottom of the division, you sort of assume that if a goalkeeper plays for the team who's 24th, well, he must be crap. He must be conceding loads of goals. But maybe sometimes the context is, well, actually, they would have conceded a lot more if they had him. He's just being worked more. I think for Arthur, it's a bit of both. He's playing for a good, resolute defensive team, but look at any game we've had this season, we could have conceded far more than we did. And you think of that last-minute save at Charlton that gets us the 3 points. You think of the saves at Preston that get us the points. You think of Ipswich, that incredible stop to deny Akpom got us the points. There's a good save as well at Portsmouth, I seem to recall as well. Like, he just does it every single week right now. And I know that there might come a time where he lets a sloppy one in. There was Norwich at the start of the season. Doesn't cost us, sort of bundles the ball back into the path of the striker. They get another consolation goal towards the end.
Leicester. I think he'd want that one back.
Yeah, but the pros well outweigh the cons at the moment, and he is so far in credit. And again, he is so young. You've got to add that context into it as well, because I know Heckingbottom, I think, said after the game at the weekend that Wrexham have bought a lot of players who are experienced at this level. I'd say the sort of second half of our summer business certainly was that. But you've still got people like Dobson, Max, Arthur, who have never played at this level, who are all so good and so consistent at the moment. And you've got to maybe give those players a bit more lenience when they don't actually perform. But for me, in person, I don't think I've seen a better Championship goalkeeper than Arthur this season.
So Arthur, 24 years old, goalkeepers can play. He could easily have another 10 years plus, 10 to 12 years at an incredibly high level if all goes well and he manages to evade injury. Like you say, you've outlined some of the things that people might criticise him for, but I think on pure shot stopping, he's as good as you're going to get. 5 clean sheets in the Championship this season. The league best is 7 from Victor Johansson at Stoke. The goalkeepers with more clean sheets than him, Michael Cooper at Sheffield United. Johansson is number 1 with 7. Carl Rushworth at Coventry is 7. Radek Vitek, 7. Thomas Kaminski, Charlton is 6. You got your finger up there, Paul.
I was going to say the other thing is Arthur obviously hasn't played the whole season in goal either, where most of those goalkeepers I presume have been sort of the number ones for the whole campaign.
Yes, yeah, no, so that is a fair point. Obviously, Okonkwo's only conceded 14 goals. That is very, very good for someone who is a number one. But again, slightly skewed by the fact he didn't play those first few games. And what would it have looked like then, had he been playing? But we don't know. And same with those expected goals against sort of thing, like how many of them have been kept out by Okonkwo and how many specific moments has Okonkwo saved, quote unquote, big chances. If I'm just looking at the players ahead of him, though, Rushworth in the Coventry team, they are the best team in the league. They've got a brilliant backline. Van Uwijk, Thomas, people like that are very, very reliable. And, 2 of the goals that they've conceded were, 3 of them were against us, right? So he's kind of conceded in chunks, but has largely been very solid. I think for me, and there's 2 to go between that I think narrowly edge out. In my top 3, I would have Arthur third in the Championship, the third best goalkeeper in the league. I would have Vitek and I would have Johansson, probably in that order. I think Vitek, when he came to Wrexham, didn't look amazing. It didn't look streets ahead in a game where Bristol City never managed to get control of it. Obviously, he gets the own goal, slightly unlucky, but should you be conceding directly? I was at Newcastle Burnley. Bruno Guimaraes scores directly from a corner in similar fashion, and I can tell you that was not a fluke, and it was very much targeted because of the goalkeeper. They were saying that put it right on the head of the goalkeeper. Eddie Howe was saying, and I half wonder whether that was kind of an area that Wrexham were looking to exploit with Vitek. I'd be curious to ask George Thomason if that was just he just put it in, it went there, or they were specifically targeting that area, because again, the answer would tell me a lot about the goalkeeper. But I do just think Johansson, there was a game I caught up where Stoke played Portsmouth, and there's a sequence in that. I know it's a kind of an isolated sequence. There's a sequence in that where Johansson is a brick wall. He is just incredible, the amount he can keep out. And, he's at a different age profile. He's in his late 20s, whereas Okonkwo is, not even 25 yet. So I'm not knocking Arthur to build, I'm not knocking one to build up another. I just think Johansson is the most reliable pair of hands right now in every aspect. His distribution, his shot stopping, commanding. He's everything you would want, and it's why Stoke have one of the best defenses in the league prior to their last game where they got absolutely thumped. But if you take that one game out of it, he barely conceded many at all. So I think Arthur right now for me is a top 3 goalkeeper in the Championship, and I can tell you if you're a top 3 goalkeeper in the Championship, you are being monitored and files are being prepared on you by every team, on a lot of teams in the Premier League and in Europe that are looking for rich squad building. I'll lastly say this: squad building is crucial, right? In every position. But if you land a very, very, very good goalkeeper, that sets you on your way for years.
Yeah. And we've got an absolute steal, I think, in Arthur Okonkwo still.
Yep.
And, it's going to be difficult maybe. Maybe, again, I think we hypothesized earlier in the year, contract talks. You've got to try and tie him down while you can. And
on that specifically, going into January, I think he's got 18 months left on his deal. Typically, the way it seems to work, from what I've gathered just working in the industry for a long time, is this is where negotiations now get quite serious at 18 months. Players feel like, and players and representatives usually feel like, if a deal gets to within the last 12 months, then a club has some doubts. If you're at the top level, it's different at League 1 and 2 where you might wait it out a bit longer. If a player gets to within the last 12 months, usually at that point there are some doubts or the feeling of doubt, and players and reps start putting feelers out elsewhere because, again, you're less than a year away from needing to find an alternative. If you get to within the final 6 months, so say your deal expires at the end of the season, I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison, but say like Jay Rodriguez would be out of contract at the end of the season. Maybe you can check, Rich, while I'm yabbering about who's out of contract at the end of the season. But if you get to January and your contract hasn't been renewed by that point, usually that is a sign that you're not going to get a new one. You're not going to get a new contract, because why would a club let it run down to the final 6 months? And the higher up the leagues you go, that kind of threshold comes up and up. 6 months is like, you're definitely not wanted. 12 months, you're leaving it a little bit late, weirdly, and 18 months. So I think we're entering a really key stretch now where Arthur will no doubt want improved terms. He's deserved them. I think he's proven that in the Championship. What kind of contract length do you offer? Do you put in a release clause? All these conversations will be going on behind the scenes and may already have happened, might already have the framework of a deal. But between now and the end of the season, I think it's absolutely imperative that you've tied Arthur down to a new contract.
So yeah, on contracts now for this is going off transfer markets information, so obviously not always correct, not privy to the actual ins and outs of what the club are doing, but this is what I gather they will have got from publicly held information on contracts. Obviously, Isa Kabore out of contract, out of loan at the end of the season for us, so only with us until the end of the campaign. Jay Rodriguez out of contract next summer. I think that's a straightforward decision to make. Aaron James out of contract next summer as well. Only 20 years old. Wouldn't be surprised if he got a new deal. Obviously, maybe wouldn't be surprised if he went either if he wanted to play regular football. Ruben Egan, Nathan's favourite footballer, who he always forgets the name of, out of contract at the end of the season, sort of Wrexham's fourth choice goalkeeper. The other two, and these are the interesting ones, Andy Cannon out of contract at the end of the season. The club has the option for a further year, but I don't really see the point in that right now. I can't see him playing at the Championship level for us, as much as that pains me. And then the last one, Nathan, this is a real compelling one. Matty James out of contract at the end of the season, 34 years old already. What do you do about that?
Oh, I was going to say, someone on YouTube did say that their prediction is that Andy Cannon will come back into the 25-man squad in January. You know my thoughts on Andy Cannon. Love Andy Cannon. You know, what a great bloke. I'm not sure I see that personally. I
think we all want that to happen, but don't actually see it.
I think we all want that to happen. I think we can't currently find a role for Rathbone in the team, and I think he is ahead of Cannon in the pecking order. I would love that to happen. I would love Andy Cannon to run out. Also remember that, and I'm pretty sure you might be able to correct me on this, Rich, but once it gets to January, Parky said it in a recent presser, the kind of registration window almost ceases for a period. So in January, you could play Cannon, you could play Rodriguez if you want, because, again, registration doesn't kind of get fixed again until the end of January. I'm pretty sure that's right. It's kind of an open season. That could be wrong, but I think it's right. I think Parkinson said that they come back into the mix in January, and then obviously by the end of January, you'll have to have firmed up your 25 again, and then you'll be back restricted to who you can pick and who you can play. So I don't necessarily see that, and I don't think they will pick up the option on Andy Cannon. The alternative is you do pick it up and then just try to sell him. But again, is that doing best by the player? He might just think, it's easier for me to move on elsewhere. Matty James, I didn't know that about his contract being up. That is a compelling one. Ooh, I think, I think with Wrexham, to a degree, I think sentiment can sort of warp the mind. I think Matty James is someone where you go, thanks for everything you've done, but, we are going to just find a similar version to you that is 10 years younger. Ultimately,
Well, you move Ben Sheaf into that role of just doing the cameo stuff and buying an even better starter, don't you? Because ultimately,
we should. Yeah, go ahead.
Go on. You go on.
I was just going to say Ben Sheaf. He's only lost one game as a starter for Wrexham in the Championship. That is Stoke City. Obviously, he did lose that game against QPR at home, but he came off the bench. That was his debut. So, of the games he started, we've only lost once with Ben Sheaf in the lineup. I think that's an incredible record. For everyone that loved the Parky graphic, and thanks for all the people that pointed out I missed one L, so I had to take the L on that one. If I did one for Ben Sheaf as a starter, you would only find one of those in there. The rest would be draws and wins. So that is a phenomenal record, and perhaps gone under the radar a little bit. But yeah, Matty James, I think, is one of them where it just gets more ruthless the higher up the leagues you go. I know some people still would like Fletcher around. He's not. And ultimately, I think Matty James is probably one where you say that you've been great for us. You've been really, really, really great, but we're going to go in a different direction. Right, Hull up next. I mentioned at the start of the episode, my friend Kathryn, she is a born and bred diehard Hull fan. I like winding her up sometimes, and she obviously gets the enjoyment of watching Joe Gelhardt play every week. So I have to let that one go eventually, but that will not be today. So I call with Kathryn to find out how it's been going for Hull, particularly after they lost 4-1 at Middlesbrough, or against Middlesbrough at home at the weekend. How are they set to respond? And will Ollie McBurnie come back into the lineup? Here is what she had to tell me. Right then, so after Preston, a solid draw at Preston, we go to Hull, who, anybody who's watching on Friday night, I will say that Friday night game is a good one to do your scouting. Well, it was Hull. I predicted Hull would win that game. Kathryn told me that was foolish at the time. Kathryn, good friend of mine and a Hull fan. What the hell happened on Friday? You went. I thought you guys were, flying high, and then you lost to Middlesbrough 4-1.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit like exaggerated to say it's been coming, but I think we've had a few first halves where we've been battered and we've got a bit lucky, and like the team that's battered us hasn't scored. And I think Middlesbrough basically just scored with every chance they had in the first half on Friday. And we could have been 4 or 5-0 down at Norwich a few weeks ago, and we ended up winning the game 2-0 because Norwich just missed every single chance. We at Stoke the previous weekend, we could have been 3 or 4 goals down at half time. Stoke took one chance. So that's why I feel like it feels like it has been coming. But in the same way, those games where we've been battered in the first half, we've gone on to win. But when you're 4-0 down at half time, it's very difficult to then try and get something out of the game. But we were just so far off it. I mean, the irony is Middlesbrough turned up late, and we clearly didn't turn up at all. So it's just one of those really bad days at the office that you hope is a blip and hope doesn't become sort of a theme of the rest of the season.
We had this situation in non-league where Ebbsfleet refused to warm up. There was some sort of dispute with ownership. So we warmed up on our own and we lost about, I can't remember now, 4-0 or something really bad. They didn't even warm up and they just came out and smoked us. So that makes me laugh every time I think about it now when we're in the Championship. Obviously, you and I chat a lot about just how things are going, how the Championship's going. I did watch that game when you played at Stoke, and you get the late winner, and then there's that whole thing where a fan comes onto the pitch and Lundstrom, is making himself a cult hero for Hull fans. I was just going to say, to point out anyone who's listening who's not been following Hull, Ryan Giles, top of the assist chart, Joe Gelhardt, joint top of the goal scoring charts. I guess at the beginning of the season, when people thought you might struggle to score a lot of goals, that's not really been your problem.
No, and do you know what? Ryan Giles has been one of the players of the season, which I think few people expected in the summer, because he was out on loan second half of last season. He went to Middlesbrough because he clearly was just unhappy here, and it really sort of felt like he didn't have a future at the club. But I think we always knew there was a player in there. It was just a case of having, I think, potentially the right manager to get it out of him. Like he got, I think, the top of the assists a few seasons ago with Middlesbrough when they had that playoff run. And for whatever reason, and when he was here, he just couldn't seem to get his best form. And I think this season, obviously having a player like Ollie McBurnie, albeit he's been injured for a couple of months now, that really helped him at the start of the season. I think that gave him confidence, getting a few early assists, and he's just managed to maintain it. And his weakness was always probably the defensive side of his game, but I do think he's improved massively in that area as well. Still not perfect, but when you're getting as many assists as he is, you can kind of allow him a little bit of leeway when it comes to defending side of things. But I mean, Gelhardt, we kind of knew what he could do. Second half of last season, had him on loan, managed to get him back. But I still think he's probably overperforming maybe what we expected him to. And I think he's really stepped up since McBurnie got injured. I think first half of the season, it was all about McBurnie trying to, find him. Everything went through him. Obviously, we lost him to an injury, and then Gelhardt's kind of taken on that main sort of forward role and has really kind of relished it, I think. And he sometimes drifts in and out of games, but I think he pops up sort of at the right time on a lot of occasions. And I mean, he kind of bought a penalty on Friday night, and it was one of those where if the goalkeeper stays where he is, he probably saves it. But another goal, I think he's on 10 now for the season, which is pretty impressive. So those two have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I love how like you and a few other Hull fans that I chat to have been sort of saying you've been denied about 10 Stonewall penalties, and the one that does get given is probably iffy, which is how it goes. Before I get on to like Wrexham and how you think the match might go Wednesday, of all the teams you've seen and like how Hull have played, How do you think you guys actually stack up in the Championship? Because obviously before the season began, you had the whole transfer embargo or restrictions put on what you could do, and it was kind of everyone, Hull will be near the bottom, Hull will struggle. And actually, Hull have been pretty much consistently around the playoff place the entire season long.
Do you know what? I think the Championship is so weird because teams can play brilliantly one week and then terrible the next. Like, we went to QPR and I thought that was a game we should win. QPR, not particularly great at home. I think they were saying on sort of Soccer Saturday yesterday that they obviously beat West Brom, and it was like they've only got 2 wins at home in however many games. And I was like, oh yeah, one of them was against us. But they played really well in that game. And then they probably go and lose the weekend after. I think we're sort of similar. We just can't seem to find that consistency. And apart from Coventry, who have really kind of blown the league away, I mean, you could put Middlesbrough maybe in that same bracket. I think we gifted them a lot of that. Not to say that they didn't play well and deserve the win, but we couldn't have probably made it easier for them on Friday. Coventry, Middlesbrough, maybe Ipswich are now starting to find their form. Obviously, got a good win at the weekend. I feel like those 3 are sort of in that bracket of being maybe better than, and then everybody else, I think it's almost like it's quite close. I think apart from this, like Sheffield Wednesday, who are right down at the bottom. Obviously, every year there's never much gap between the teams sort of that think they might be able to get in the top 6 and those that are sort of hanging around the just above the relegation zone. So I do feel like going forward we're a very good team, but I think we have got the worst defence in the league, and that's why we're not in the top 6 at the minute.
Worst defence in the league.
I think we
Huge
have. I think we
claim.
had the worst defence in the league last weekend, and conceding 4 against Middlesbrough's probably not helped us.
No. Well, talk to me a bit about the manager, because I will quickly caveat that to say that Kathryn and a couple of other Hull fans were on a quiz show. And you can go find that on YouTube. Might even put the link in the description. And you were going up against Phil Brown, which is obviously one of the iconic Hull managers. That'd be like going up against Parky in a few years if any Wrexham fan gets to do that. So I'm sure that was very surreal. But the current manager, tell us a bit about him and what he's done since he's come in.
He's been brilliant, to be fair. I mean, Friday night aside, where it was just a bad day at the office, I think it's quite refreshing to have a manager that isn't sort of like wedded to one style of play, that he can sort of switch it up. And he's not one of those people this is the way we play, and if it doesn't work, then we'll just find a way to make it work. He is open to changing things. I mean, he's got a few things wrong in different games. Sometimes you think maybe he should have played a back 5 for this game, and he's played a back 4 and it's not worked. And I suppose the one sort of criticism of him is that we still haven't sorted the defence out from the start of the season. It's been an ongoing issue, and I'm not 100% sure if the problem is with the back 4, if it's with the midfield, where exactly the issue is coming from, but he's not managed to solve that. However, at the other end of the pitch, we're playing some brilliant football, and it's entertaining to watch. I mean, this is what the owner wanted when he came in. He basically said, I want total football, like entertaining, like goals, goals, goals. The problem is when you have that is that sometimes at the other end of the pitch, you're not very well organised. Despite the fact that when you actually look at our back 4, I think we've got 4 very good defenders in there, and 5 sometimes when we play a back 5. So I'm not really sure why it doesn't work. If it is more to do with the midfield and they're not protecting them enough, whatever the issue is. But I think, considering nobody knew anything about the manager when he came in the summer, I think he's probably surprised a few people. And so far, the fans seem to like him. He's pretty honest. I think, that's kind of what you want from a manager. My one question mark is if we ever do get into a point in the season when we're in a bit of a rut, which we've not really had. I guess you could say now 3 defeats in 4 games is potentially that rut. How does he get a reaction from the team? So I think this next week is probably going to be quite telling for him. I think obviously playing you guys and then going to Millwall away, that's 2 pretty difficult games in my opinion. And I think he's got to try and win one of them. Definitely not lose both of them, because I think then we would be in trouble.
Yeah, you'll be the one leading the hate brigade, I'm sure, knowing you as well as I do. I was just having a quick look at the team, and obviously we played you early in the season. I think we probably even spoke to you before that game in the Carabao, where Casey Palmer ended up looking like Ronaldinho. Your keeper looked like he'd never played in goal before, and is it Cody Drama turned into prime Cafu? So expecting a different team. I think Joel Indala, he missed the decisive penalty in the end. McBurney unused sub against Middlesbrough, I think. Balumi, who I quite like, he was really good at Stoke when he came on, I thought. What are you expecting this weekend in terms of, he'll probably stick with the 4-2-3-1 formation? Will it be Gelhardt 10, McBurney up top? Or will it be, who was there, Destan up top? What do you think is going to be the kind of personnel for Wrexham?
It's whether McBurney is fit enough to start, because I don't know whether they just didn't bring him on against Middlesbrough because we were 4-0 down at half time and it was sort of like, what's the point in, risking him? If he's fit enough to start, I think you have to start him. But my question mark is they've been so cautious with him over this whole injury period. I wouldn't be surprised if he is only fit enough to start on the bench and can maybe play 45 minutes, in which case, I mean, Destan, Kyle Joseph, both of them have played that role up top. I mean, they were both terrible the other night. So you could sort of take your pick as to which one starts. I think Liam Miller might come in. He did come on for about half an hour on Friday and looked quite lively. And if he's fit enough, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in. Bellumi, I think, might get a chance to start now again. He's obviously been coming back from an injury, so he's only been coming off the bench. But I think he might potentially get a start. And then it's whether he plays a back four or a back five, because he did go to a back five in the second half at Middlesbrough. And I mean, without kind of knowing massively how Wrexham sort of set up away from home, whether he wants to be sort of more defensive minded and put an extra defender in there, or whether he thinks he'd rather have a back four and put an extra attacker in, might depend on how he sort of views what Wrexham's game plan is going to be for that match. But again, I think Charlie Hughes will, if he's fit, if he sort of came on at half time on Friday, I think, just to try and sort of help the defence out so he didn't concede any more goals. But he obviously didn't start that game because he wasn't fit enough. So I think a lot is going to depend on who's fit and who's able to start.
I mean, it doesn't matter if Wrexham playing home, away, on the moon, they will play a back five. That is Phil Parkinson's way to the bitter end, which has served us well so far. Very, very last question then, which is just going to be about, obviously, Kiefer Moore scored again. He's 2 behind Gelhardt. He's 2 behind the league leaders in terms of the scoring, with 8 in the league. Obviously, Preston struggled to contain him, and he gets the goal that sets us ahead. And obviously, Harrison Armstrong equalises. But Kiefer Moore is a huge part of our success this season. I'm looking at Egan, I'm looking at Ajayi. Will that be the back two? And out of those two, who do you think is better served to trying to nullify Kiefer Moore?
I mean, based on Friday night's performance, neither.
All right, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Kiefer Moore is one of those players that always scores against us as well. Like, I think he's scored against us quite a few times for various different teams he's played for. We obviously tried to sign him before he went to Sheffield United. I think he was about to get on a plane to Hull from Bournemouth, and reliably informed, before Chris Wilder phoned him and said, come to Sheffield United. And I think his family or his wife might be from Sheffield or something like that. It was one of those where it was like so close to happening, what could have been. And
is that your
really
like Lewandowski Ash Cloud Blackburn situation?
Yeah, obviously
like
not
what could
quite
have
as
been.
big. But we really struggled to defend crosses. I mean, if you watched us on Friday, like, we just can't clear the ball for some reason. Whether it's as letting crosses come in too easily or just not defending them when they do come in, it sort of feels like if you're Kiefer Moore and you're in the form that he's in, you'll be fancying the goal, I guess, especially against sort of our defence. So I think maybe Ajayi, when he's on it, he's a really good defender. He's just had a few games where he's not been at his best. And I think he's probably better when he plays alongside Charlie Hughes. I think that works for both him and Johnny Egan. I think both of them are better when they play alongside Hughes. It's just a case of who's fit. And maybe we do play a back five and match you if you're going to play a back five. So I'll be interested to see whether we do play the 3 centre-backs to try and sort of, surely one of them can keep him quiet.
Prediction then, what do you think?
This season, probably not.
Draw, win? What do you think? I think it's going to go?
I mean, I think I'd take a draw, just because I think losing would be like, it would really kind of concern me, just because we play Millwall and West Brom in the next 2 games, which are always going to be difficult. I think if you've got ambitions to get in the playoffs, your home games, you want to be, these are the ones that you want to win. But I just think you guys are so tricky to play against. You're on a great run as well. I don't think you've lost many games recently. So I'd take a point. Obviously, I'd like to win, but I would probably be conservative and take a point.
Rob Ryan Reds.
With Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Rob Ryan Reds.
So there you go, Rich. Ollie McBurney might not get off the bench. Kathryn thinks maybe only fit enough for 45 minutes. It'll be interesting because he's been a thorn in Wrexham side for a while. We played Hull earlier on in the campaign in the Carabao Cup that ended in such disappointment for us, or not on that night anyway. That was the Ollie Palmer game. Expecting a very different team, expecting a very tough test. As I said to you off air, if you lose 4-1 at home and you've got another home game coming up, usually they're going to come out all guns blazing.
Yeah, you've got to be. You'll be against a whole team of real point to prove and looking to make up for the mistakes of last Friday night. Kind of to hypothetically quote Katy Perry there. The thing is that it's a real tough one because I think from a Wrexham point of view, when we play badly, we do usually respond. Again, you look at the Cardiff Coventry game and the way that went. You probably don't play as well against Coventry if you'd won the Cardiff game, oddly. You look at the Notts County win. Probably doesn't happen in quite that manner if you don't lose to Halifax as well. So it's a weird way that these things have to work. But based on what we've seen lately, even if Hull come firing out the blocks with a real point to prove, they're going to have to be really good to get past this Wrexham side. And both teams will have changed a lot since those sort of late summer nights when we played in the Carabao Cup. And again, I know this is just becoming cliche, but I'm just expecting more of the same of what I've seen for the past 2 or 3 months, really. I'm expecting Wrexham to go to, what is it, the MKM Stadium now? Or is that what it's called? And I'm expecting another draw, Nathan.
Really? The 10th draw of the season?
To go off at the moment. Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing. Wednesday night will be our 20th game of the season in the league. And there's a very real possibility we will have drawn half of them, which is, again, both positive or negative and really just split the fan base sometimes because it's very easy to want more, but if you're not losing games, that's a pretty good habit to have. And I think we kind of did some loose research before we started the pod that we reckon Wrexham are on the longest unbeaten run out of any of the teams in the top 4 divisions. I couldn't see any of the
it's got to be.
top teams that were on a longer unbeaten run than Wrexham. So that's what I'm expecting, mate. It's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think it might be quite high scoring on Wednesday, which I didn't expect. What did I go for against Preston? I went with a 2-0, 2-1 win, something like that. I think I went for 2 goals. So I didn't think it would be a blowout in any stretch. I think it might be sort of 3-2 either way on Wednesday. I think because Hull, as Kathryn was saying, defensively, they are among the worst in the division. But they score goals. They've got the top assister in the league in Ryan Giles. They've got the top scorer in the league in Joe Gelhardt. McBurney knows where the net is. When they came to our place, I know that was their kind of second string, quote unquote, to a degree. They scored 3 goals. Obviously, we end up scoring 3 goals as well. So I do think it might be another thriller. This time we won't have Ollie Palmer to bail us out, but I think just because they will need to go for it, and I think actually they only know how to go for it. It seems like they don't do this conservative football, keep it tight, nick a goal type display. They don't do that. They always concede, and they usually always score. Even against Middlesbrough when they got hammered 4-0 down at half time, they do come out and quote unquote win the second half with the goal. Gelhardt gets the penalty. So I think for those going to the MKM on Wednesday, I think you will be entertained. Let's just hope it's entertainment for the little pocket of away fans and not just the home fans. But I just want to quickly say as well, fair play to the 3,300 that went to Preston. That is a huge turnout away. I saw some nonsense on social media that was poor because Wrexham didn't sell out their entire allocation.
30 quid for a ticket. What,
that's
2
ridiculous.
weeks before Christmas?
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And anyone who's going away, anyone who's going away to anywhere, one of the games, all of the games, Swansea just before Christmas on a Friday night, Hull in the midweek. We've had some really, really long and expensive trips this season, and I've seen plenty of the same faces at all of them. So this isn't any sort of top reds or anything like that. But if you are going and spending your money, I just loathe the fact that you've got people, counting the numbers. It doesn't matter how many go. If we're well supported and people are spending their money, good on them.
Again, the quirk we've spoken about this sort of colloquially in pubs is that if we get promoted to the Premier League, it'll actually be cheaper to go watch us away because there's a strict £30 price cap on away tickets in the Premier League. And when we go play Coventry next year, that'll be like 40 quid for an away ticket. Like
More.
You cannot we're very fortunate that thanks to you watching that we can sometimes fund these away games through the very little sort of ad revenue and stuff we get. And we really appreciate that because it puts us in a privileged position. But for lots of people, it's just not doable, particularly if you're taking a few people. If you go into Coventry as a family of 4, that's 120 quid just on tickets. Then you've got your food and drink. Then you've got your transport. You're looking at 300 quid for a day out. But that is... when we went to Portsmouth, Nath, you could have gone on a nice family holiday for the price we have to pay to get the train down there, the hotel, the match tickets and stuff. So, yeah, we appreciate every single fan who can make it to away games. And we also appreciate the ones who can't, because it's a luxury not many can afford either. So if you have to watch it at home, don't feel like you're not doing your part or whatever. You're as justified as anyone else. You might not be in the same position. And yeah, Hull, you won't miss much. It's got to be a draw anyway, so don't worry about that. Yeah, Nath, FA Cup draw as well on Monday. Speaking of draws all around. Monday night FA Cup draw. Hopefully that will have been, some of you listening now will already know that we have got Arsenal away mid-January. But I think last week we spoke about it, but we didn't give a definitive answer of who we actually want. I proposed Cardiff for revenge. Turns out they got knocked out in the second round. Who cares about that cup, apparently? So, FA Cup, I know this will be outdated for some of you, but right now, Nath, as of Sunday evening, who would be your dream draw?
Liverpool away, because their house is on fire basically right now, and Mo Salah's said that I just think that any Prem team, we already said this, any Prem team will heavily rotate. Part of me would also love a home game against Man United, because could you just imagine, both from a selfish point of view, from a work perspective, the idea of Ruben Amorim in meltdown after losing to Parky Ball would just be fascinating.
The United
to see
fan base is not ready for what we would do.
No. That and for some reason, you and I would be criticised over hell and high water just for being
the funny
associated
thing
with
we
Wrexham.
get is Wrexham fans all think. You know what I mean? We get loads of abuse of being Man United fans, and then obviously our credentials both ways don't work, do they? So myself and Nate only support Wrexham for anyone watching this. We do not care about Manchester United's results. Sometimes it helps us if Man United win, because it makes our job easier. Sometimes it's quite nice when they lose heavily, because it also makes it interesting work.
One club actually affects my emotions, and that is Wrexham AFC. So I would like a Premier League team, and depending on the Premier League team, that would dictate home and away. Any of the big six at Wrexham would be great. I
want again. And you talk about teams we might be able to beat. Like Tottenham at the moment, you wouldn't be surprised if we could do that. But what I would love, this is the one I'd want the most. I think Chelsea away, the Joey Links, Mickey going to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea would rotate heavily. We'd get compensation for the Carabao Cup finally. I really fancy that. A nice trip to London mid-January. Like we said, that game, I think, do we say it's the weekend of about the 10th or the 11th of Jan? So that's one for your diaries anyway. And yeah, we shall see. But thank you very much to all of you for joining us once again. Thank you very much to Nathan Salt for editing the podcast that you should all be watching now on YouTube, unless he's slacked and fallen asleep like he's got a knack for doing these damn human rights that
you've just done me dirty there, because I've fallen asleep many edits, so I can't believe you've just done that.
You've also worked about 12. You've worked 19-hour shifts on those days. There is no criticism.
I'm going to remember that. But yes, thank you all for your support. And remember, if you are a long-time listener, the Big Fat Quiz of the Year will be at the very, very end of this month. So if you've been thinking of little things that have happened across Wrexham over the course of the year, keep that in mind for our third instalment of the quiz.
Thank you very much to Red 10 People Development for your continued support of the podcast. A reminder, you can get in touch, robryanred@gmail.com, robryanred.com as well. And to lots of you who comment on YouTube, we do try and read them out and respond to as many as possible. Thank you to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings you hear in the show. See you again next time when Wrexham will inevitably draw again. Ta-ra.
Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.